Hey there, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Motivated Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Stein, and today I am very pleased to have an acquaintance and an old friend. We've been knowing each other since 1999. We're going to get into it or so, maybe 2000. This gentleman is he's an entrepreneur at heart. He's a speaker, an author. He's a coach. And the CEO of his own firm, which we're going to get all into. But he's got a unique story, and I'd like to share that with you today. So without further delay, let's welcome into the program my friend, Mike Mastro. And thanks for listening. Mike, how are you?
I'm great, Bobby. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my good pleasure, man. I think it was back in, I want to say I moved down here. Let me ask you first and foremost, how are you making out with how'd you navigate this season's snowbird event?
It's fine. It's fine. We have it every year, and it seems to grow every year. Florida seems to be quite the destination these days, and South Florida, among most parts of the state, is just very, very desirable. Weather here, you can't beat it, right, in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Every year it just builds and builds, and they just have to keep building more roads.
It's amazing, too, even after that tragedy, the hurricane, Ian that came rolling through. You would think that would be a wake-up call, not only for local residents, but folks wanting to visit and actually migrate here. But it was really not a deterrent, in spite of everything that happened.
No, I think folks just found a place to go. They found someplace else that was fine. So, that was pretty devastating. Like Florida does, we will rebuild very quickly, or started already. So it won't look like, probably in a year or two, you won't know anything happened. So they do a great job in replenishing the beaches and so forth.
Yeah, it is truly paradise. We thoroughly enjoy it. Now, when I moved down here, I've been down since 1999, Mike, and I was a gym rat at heart. So I always played a lot of pickup basketball and I was in the weight room and stuff just as a matter of course and hobby. And when I came down here, I was seeking after a place to play, because I had a group of fellas back in the Northeast where I hail from. How can I interact and get together with some like-minded folks? And of course, it wasn't long before I found a place in Bonita Springs, Florida, at a local rec center where I believe that's where I first met you, and among a bunch of other guys. And we'd have our knees taped up and our elbows wrapped and. You remember that?
We're trying to keep up with the young bucks, so that might have put us at how old, I'm afraid to say. I don't know, we might have been in our early 40s, somewhere around that. But, we're playing with these guys that are 19, 20, 21, like three strides, and they're down court, they're like gazelles.
Yeah, so
but, I was there for the workout, and, it was a great time. So, I ended up at the rec center. We played at the Y. Couple of places. There was a church in Vinny that we ended up playing in also. So wherever we could play back then. I remember coming home sopping wet, but it was a great run.
I look forward to it every day. And, looking back on it, we were in our early 40s, perhaps, maybe 40-ish. And man, that seems like prime time now, right? Do you ever get out at all? You don't play anymore, do you?
I do not.
You still get out there?
I do not. I would go shoot, but playing days are over, Bobby. It's time to... The risk to benefit ratio is no longer there for me. Twisted ankles. I rolled the right ankle 3 times. And then put braces on them. So you're really clunky running down the court. So that's behind me. So I enjoy watching the game now as a lot of other games as well,
Absolutely. From the sidelines. Yeah. Tighten it out. You'd roll the ankle. No sooner you'd roll it, you'd be lacing the sneaker up as tight as it would go when you get back out there. Blow up like a watermelon when you get home.
Right.
Oh, it's crazy. But you began your career. You were good enough to send me some notes because I want to get filled in on your background a little bit and what's led you on your path and your course of action to bring you to where you are now. Were you always into sports in the gym? Well, take me back where you hail from. You're a Northeast guy, are you not?
Yeah, I was born in New York, but grew up in New Jersey at the Jersey Shore, and I lived a block from the beach growing up. It was really an interesting and beautiful time, and a great part. The Jersey Shore is a very popular place too, and I got into sport. Always liked sports. I come from my cousins were very, very into it. And so growing up, we were just New York fans, Jets, Giants, Yankees. They say you can't like them all, but I like all the New York teams, but that's where I'm from. Rangers for hockey. In fact, that thing in the background right there, the hockey stick was signed by Henrik Lundqvist of the Rangers. That was one of his game sticks. But anyway, I like sports quite a bit. And that's what led me down to the path eventually, because I was an athlete in high school. that was the end of my career. I wasn't good enough to get a great scholarship to a great school. But I played, baseball. I wrestled. I loved playing basketball, loved playing football, but I wasn't great at any of them. But I really enjoyed playing all of those sports.
Now, did that take you into your first career? Tell me a little bit about that. That was essentially, that really launched you on your path to entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah, as a young kid, I dabbled with barbells and things. Saw guys that looked really good and wanted to kind of look like that, but didn't really pick it up seriously until I was in my early 20s, and I was really liking it a lot at that point. Really was enjoying it, liked it a lot, and I was just drifting at that point. Didn't know what kind of job I wanted, and I got offered a job at this very big corporate club that I was working out at. It was back then. It was a holiday spa. So they were owned back then by a very big conglomerate organization. I think they were out of Chicago, and they ended up buying a lot of holiday spas, Jack LaLanne, and European spas back then. And so I started as a fitness instructor. So now we're going back to the late 70s, early 80s. And at that point, there was no such thing yet as personal training. It was like you had fitness instructors, and that's where I started. They moved me into sales, which ended up being a good thing. That was really a push for me because I had no sales background except, when I started my paper route at 12 years old. But other than that, I didn't sell anything. And they put you through a magnificent sales training classes, I should say, on a regular basis. So the whole time I was there, I got good sales training. I went from gym to gym, from club to club, and at the time I was getting married, and it just seemed like from the chatter I was hearing that when am I going to get a real job, And so I went and got a job in computers because I have a degree in computer science. So computers were up and coming back then, at the same time. And I left and went into computers, absolutely hated it. Didn't like anything about it. In fact, now I had a really fine time to go work out. So I lasted in that for about 2 years. Ended up as a customer service rep. I was doing fine. I just wasn't liking it. And so I left and went back into the fitness arena. And so personal training, let me just give the background to that, how I saw that and how I even started that, because it wasn't a thing yet. In fact, the phrase personal trainer had not yet been coined as a phrase.
Term, yeah.
So today we watch, there's shows on like Hollywood Access, TMZ, those kind of shows. So back then, whatever that show was, it showed this guy, very fit guy, riding in a convertible Mercedes in Beverly Hills, pulling up to this gorgeous home. And the announcer was saying, and now we're going to go to visit how the stars like to work out. And this guy, goes in the front door. You can't really see who it was. Come to find out, it was Jake Steinfeld back then. He's gone on to do infomercials. He's a pretty famous guy if you're in the fitness arena. But he was, training these Hollywood stars. And I was looking at that, and I must have been in my late teens, early 20s, and I looked at it, I saw that, I said, that's what I want to do. I mean, the whole picture, the convertible, the Beverly Hills, so that kind of...
Sign me up.
Yeah, that caught my interest. And so it wasn't a thing yet, so I started dabbling on a business card, because I was an instructor in a gym, and I was taking people through these workouts and setting them up on programs, and I thought, if I can get paid better for this... So back then, instructors, you were making about $7-8 an hour. That was it. You had a degree in anatomy and physiology, whatever you had. But that was the pay scale. And so as time would have it, just a couple of years later, I ventured out. I said, this is because now it was in New York and it was in LA. It was becoming a thing. It wasn't in smaller suburbs yet or anywhere in any cities, really. It was in like LA and New York. That's where things start. And so I went up to New York and I went out to LA and I wanted to see what this all looked like. And I thought, so they had studios, but then I saw, these people in fitness centers and gyms working with people. So I thought we're going to do this. So I did. And so I just went to people I knew first. And, I was a competitor back then and I did well. I won a championship. So that got me some notoriety. writing in the paper, and that pretty much launched it. I started out with 3 or 4 clients, and so my goal at that point was, I did the math. I think back then we were charged, it was ridiculous, like 40, 50 bucks an hour, very low as compared to what we're getting today, what trainers get today. And that was it. I didn't look back, just trained. And then I got to this spot where I hit this ceiling, like I was working a lot every day. And I thought, well, hold on now. What happens now? I hit this ceiling. So now I was doing fine, right? Doing great, but there was no more hours left in the day. And it was at that time that I started finding marketing. Before that, I was a guy that devoured personal development information. I was into the Wayne Dyers, the Zig Ziglars, the Tom Hopkins, all of the names back then, the motivational speakers. And that's how I just fed my
Tom
brain.
Hopkins, yeah.
Yeah, Dennis Waitley, Jack.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. So where you think that was, you like Tom Hopkins is a prime example with the sales thing. You went through this elaborate, paid for from the holiday folks sales training program. Number one, did that help you in your one-on-one presentation of the offerings to individuals? Did you see a systematic scenario by where you could kind of funnel them into a decision without, because you're not a typical sales guy, Mike. You're not what the stereotypical car salesman from the 60s would be, when people think of a salesman, right? A used car salesman or something. Did that system help you? And then is that what kind of got you reading up on folks like Tom Hopkins and then subsequently Dennis Waitley and folks that you mentioned, the motivational guys? Was that instrumental in that regard?
Yes. And I'll tell you, I hated sales because we were taught the canned responses, how to overcome objections, and I didn't like it all. Yeah. It just seemed very fake and artificial to me. And that's why I went from club to club. I didn't like the pressure. Back then, they wanted you to even pressure people a little bit. I didn't like that whole thing. It was
closing, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that whole thing. So what it taught me, however, was the fact that, like I felt I was in a good place. Really, I worked from my heart at that point. Like I understood, I was into working out, and I saw people coming through the door. This stuck with me. So a person can sometimes, they're in there, let's just say they're 40s, 50s, 60s, and they are out of shape, they're overweight, and they've been thinking for a long time about exercising, and they really want to do it, but they're afraid to walk into a gym or a health club. They're very, very intimidated. Sometimes they peek in and like, I can't go in. There's all these like gorgeous bodies around. And meanwhile, this person might be down the road of diabetes. They might be down the road waiting to have a heart attack. You just don't know because they're deconditioned and out of shape, and they know they need it and know they want it, but they're intimidated. Now, back then, there wasn't a gym on every block. It was very few. You had to really travel to a place. And I was taught, this is one thing they taught me, said, that person walks in the door, you might be their last hope. Like if they come in and you blow them out, or if they're like overly intimidated and they leave, they might never look into exercise or fitness again. And what a disservice that would be. And so that always stuck with me. And you felt
that high pressure was just doing just the opposite of what your heart was telling you was the real calling to these.
That's right.
These people needed to. Yeah, gotcha.
That's right. I wanted to have a genuine conversation, and that's what I did. And if they didn't like it, they didn't like it. You're not supposed to let somebody leave without a manager coming in and do a takeover. They call it a TO, like in the car business. Like
TO man.
That's why I left that company. I went to other places where that wasn't the practice because that wasn't me. I'd rather just, here's what I can do for you, and I'd love to have you. And if it's great, let's try it out. And if you love it, you stick with it. And if not, I hope you find somebody that you do, that resonates with you. But that's it. I like to leave it up to that person.
That goes such a long way. I'm serious. I think that goes so much further too. I think people can feel that heat. They can feel the fact that when a manager comes in, it is a takeover situation. So I wanted to mention that because, in your bio, you're a sales guy by nature. And I subscribe to the same school of thought. I think that, I'm never really asking for a sale in so many words. It's an assumptive scenario by where if I've developed a rapport and a relationship that's worthy of anything, and like you say, if we try it, we try it. If not, rock out and go down the road and Godspeed. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that because that's the kind of vibe I've always gotten from you.
Yes, we subscribe to the same school of thought, and just like what you just mentioned, people buy from who they know, like, and trust. I mean, that's like, business 101. And so the thing is, you got to build that rapport, so you try to identify with that person. And anybody that was into fitness, I identified with right away, no matter where they were from, race, ethnicity, doesn't matter what shape they're in, how old they were. I didn't care. I knew why they were there, and we would have that conversation.
Excellent. So now you've bounced around to a couple different places. You realize that there's a cap on your earning potential. So you see this opportunity in front of you. Take me from there. How's it transpire a little bit?
So personal training became a thing. I was booked, and I opened up a studio with a partner. It was the first personal training studio in New Jersey. And I thought that's a way, because now I learned about leverage. And so I had to, I only have so many hours in a day and I'm one person. So what do? You can open up a place and you can actually sell memberships, that kind of thing. So I opened up and we had a high relocation location. It was great. And as luck would have it, sometimes partners don't agree 100% on things. And so after a couple of years, we were at that point where, we were getting along fine, but I had a little bigger visions. And so I just asked my partner, I said, here's a really fair price. And for this, you can buy me out or I will buy you out, your choice. And that's how we left it. And so they bought me out. And so I thought, well, what do I do now? So personal training was becoming a thing. And so I just put my thinking cap on and say, well, where are all the people that want to work out? Well, they were at these big, giant health clubs. And so I went to one, and they were having a problem getting personal training off the ground at all. Because again, it wasn't advertised. If you still at that point, if you said you were a personal trainer, people didn't know what you were talking about. Really, it was just starting to get around. So I worked a deal with them. I said, you've got about 3,000 members here. I want the rights to all the personal training here. For that, you will get a cut. We worked out an arrangement, and I will hire a trainer or two, because it was just me at that point. And I said, I will grow this program. You will have a personal training program here. And so we did. We signed a 10-year agreement, and I was off. So next thing you know, now I had some clients that I brought over, and this fellow walks in one day looking for a job in fitness as a personal trainer. I'm like, that's an interesting statement, personal trainer. Where'd you hear that? He goes, well, I worked in New York for this personal training studio. And so he was my first guy. And he brought some good working knowledge, definitely had the background and the education. And so he was trainer one. And that was it. I was learning leverage. So now I worked negotiated a deal with the club. I brought trainers in. So it was a win-win-win. And I learned through what I was studying that's how a deal should be made, where everybody wins. I don't like it when somebody loses. I'd rather walk away from the deal. As long as everybody wins, so the trainer's happy, I'm happy, the club's happy. It was great. So we just built it from there. From that point on, I just did that a few more times. I just went to other clubs that wanted that arrangement. So I had a great run. That was a great decade. That was like the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s or so. And that's how that all went down. And at that point, I decided I'm moving to Florida because I had vacationed here several times and in January, and I liked it a lot because it was just beautiful. There's no snow. And so I closed up shop up there, and that was how I ended up in Florida. Now, let me just sidestep here a little bit. As I was moving to Florida, I had that was a great decade. I learned a lot. I knew how to build a business. And
had big hair.
Well, I had long hair. It wasn't big, but it was long. It was the 80s,
big hair.
It was the 80s. And I was getting into direct response marketing very heavily. And I thought, I have a skill set here. And I think there's a lot of personal trainers or want to be personal trainers throughout the country that I could sell my knowledge to. And so I went and I put this offering out. So there were only like one or two fitness magazines back then. Now there's a gazillion of them. There was one that fed the industry for like aerobic instructors and fitness instructors. So
kind of like a trade.
It was a trade magazine, yeah. So I put an ad in there, and the ad had all the elements that I learned. You put a headline, you put a subheadline, you engage the reader, you make an offer of some kind. And so to sell a course, which is what I was doing, I wanted to make it a two-step selling process, not a one-step. In other words, one step would be if I put an ad in there and say, okay, buy this now for $199. That's kind of a tough sell when you're taking out a 4x4 ad and you don't have a lot of room for information. So I thought, let me make it a two-step. So all I said was, call this 24-hour free recorded hotline and learn where you can get this free report on how to make lots of money, or whatever the headline was, as a personal trainer. Well, I got lots and lots of calls. So what I do, I captured information, their contact information. So what I mailed them was a free report, and it was pretty informative. It was about personal training and how I got started and what I did. And it was also a letter that sold the course that I was selling. And here's the price. And if you want it, here's the address. Send in your money. And it was a check, send your check in and you get the course. Lo and behold, there's checks in the mailbox. So back then we rented at whatever these places are that have P.O. boxes, not P.O. boxes, but it had a suite number. So it depicted like I had this office, which I didn't back then. But I go there every day and there's checks in the mail. And like, I was always fascinated by this anyway. Like as a kid, I sent away for this like a barbell weight training course, and it was a poster, it was a little book. And I was always fascinated as a kid. Like I'm sending 50 cents or $1 in and I get this thing back. That always intrigued me. And now I did this and it was like going very well. And I thought now it was like there's no turning back. It was like now I had not only the marketing bug, but I'm like going to immerse myself into this category. And so that was how I shared information. That was my first, let's just say, way to share what I had with trainers all across the country. I mean, it was every state, Midwest, California, Oregon, every place these checks were coming from. And I just mailed them through the mail.
So was it a course that you it was as a Word doc or a document? How was the course?
It was, back then we had computers, Bobby, but we didn't have internet at this point. Okay. So all we had is a big giant word processor. So I typed out, yes, it was a monthly newsletter.
That's right.
And every month I gave them solid, good golden nuggets of information on a certain topic of marketing their services. I would always recommend a great book to read because I was always reading books and listening to tapes and things. And so it was very conversational. But at the same time, it showed them how to become a personal trainer, what to say, what not to say. And back to your question before, because I was, had to build my own, how to become a trainer. Yeah, I went to people's homes first. Like I was driving around in the car and I would bring, a couple of things, but I would outfit this little space that they would have in their whatever room, the spare room. We would buy like a physio ball, a couple of bands, a couple of light dumbbells, and a mat. And you beat them up for an hour. They'd have a great workout, and that's how it started. So then I moved it into the studio. That's how that went down. So it was a progression. So I shared that progression and how I ended up with the clubs and how I got the clubs in. But my presentation to every single person, eventually it was, I could recite it in my sleep because after you do it 3, 4, 5 times, you see what works and you see what doesn't work. And then you just keep the ones the parts of it that work. Like I knew what everybody wanted. They wanted to get into better shape, lose some fat, gain some muscle tone, and fit into their clothes better. So as long as you hit the good points, they want to try it out. And that's it. Once they have you as a trainer, they don't, they would stick it with you forever as long as you service them well, like any business.
How did you, the 2-step marketing process is that something you came on your own, or was that through research and reading?
No. I give credit. There's so many people that I studied. So there's some great names in the world of marketing, but I became a very, very, I used to read a lot. I would just order whatever books it was. And again, the cassette tapes were very helpful. Like there was a service back then where you could subscribe to a cassette program. But marketing wasn't this big thing yet, so you really had to look. Like you go to the bookstore, or the public library, there's all kinds of rows and rows of fiction. And then you go to the nonfiction section and there's one little section and half of it is sales and half of it is marketing. And you got a dozen books to choose from. Like it wasn't a big thing yet.
That's it. Yeah.
But I studied what I could. And so I learned that. Because again, if it's a low price point of, let's just say $50 or less, you can do it with 1-step marketing back then. But any more than that, you kind of got to, like that letter that I sent them, that free report was 14 pages long. And it took me a good 6 months to write that. Like I would
Yeah.
go back to it every single day, edit it, add some things, take some things out, because I was learning how to write.
So you really
actions.
fine tune the copy.
And I wish I had that to this day, Bobby. If I had it, it worked so well. And in the move, and then that computer was gone. And it's just, because back then we didn't have flash drives and all this good stuff. It was probably on a floppy disk, and it's just gone. But I toiled over that for a long time. But yeah, it was a good sales letter.
That is awesome. So you get down to Florida, and that's what you're doing that from Florida. You're going to, and I find it intriguing too, because I would, as a youngster in grade school, they would say, as an experiment, if you want to learn about or write an essay on a certain state, like whether it be Colorado or South Dakota or something, write to the state capital, write to their chamber of commerce, write to this department or whatever. And I remember as a fourth grader writing those letters, and then in the mail would come all these resources and packets and brochures and everything. And out of that, you would deduce and make an essay to turn in for your class grade. But I think that's so cool when you go to the mailbox and there's a check. I mean, that's got to be
Bobby, I can't tell you how it was shocking. It was really, to me, it was just because I was something I was trying, and sometimes you try and you fail. Like I had tried a lot of things, and I'm just giving you the successful parts. But you have to understand,
Sure.
When I was selling memberships to health clubs, there were so many times you just get rejected, and you can't let rejection stop you. And so that's one of the things it taught me. You just got to keep, moving forward until you try something that works. That happened too. I put so much time and effort into that it worked pretty well that right out of the gate. So yeah, I was fortunate.
Well, getting back to the sales quote unquote pitch, you try, you get rejected. But after a while, you internalize the dialogue and you realize what responses you're eliciting are actually positive versus negative. And it becomes part of your makeup and your DNA, if you will, and you just carry it forward. So yeah, you've certainly incorporated that. That is for sure. So now you're down here doing this kind of stuff. How do I find it? Where's the transition? So how long did you do that course for? How long did that run its course?
That ran its course. I did not renew it, so I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm the first person to tell all of my clients. Actually, you have to understand, I've been now studying marketing for over 30 years. This has been a progression. This is like I didn't read one book and become this marketing expert. This took a lot of time and effort and trial and error. But if I knew back then what I know now, I would have put more ads in that magazine. I would have grew that newsletter, very, very big. Now, here's the thing that soured me, and I had to grow up, okay? Because I was not mature in my, whatever that was. It was my late 20s, maybe early 30s. I put that ad in. It did great, right? That same magazine, about a year later, nobody knew what personal training was, yet, and it was becoming a thing. And all of a sudden, there's several ads for personal training courses, and I'm like, these guys are ripping me off. They stole my idea, as if my idea was going to last forever to be my own, And so it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But anyway, I was in the middle of move, so I didn't renew. I didn't do anything else with that at that time. If I had it to do over, I would have. Now I know. If you have something that works once, run that ad a lot until it stops
leverage
working.
That.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
Beat it up.
Yes, 100%. So, but anyway, I did move to Florida, and that's where everything changed. So I came down here, and I started in fitness down here because it's what I knew. But because now I was getting into marketing and marketing was working for me, I just started talking to my friends about it because a lot of my friends were entrepreneurs or business owners also. And, we would talk business and it would come up and I would say, have you tried this? And they would say, well, no. And I would talk to them about it. I said, you know what, that's a pretty good idea. And they would try it and it would work. And I thought, and that's how the progression came for me to start marketing as a business. So I started a business back then called Success Marketing Systems. And I did it for a number of years. And one more, let me take you back to New Jersey for 1 second. So I was doing very well in business in New Jersey. Personal training to me was a professional service. There's doctors, lawyers, accountants. I consider personal trainers. If you do it right, like I always dressed appropriately, handled myself appropriately, made sure my trainers handled themselves appropriately. To me, it was a profession. It wasn't just a business. So that to me was a profession. Then I opened up a tanning salon. So I was a guy in New Jersey And I would frequent tanning salons because I wanted to stay. You just look better with a tan. I don't do it anymore. As you can tell, I'm probably pretty pale. But back then I did. And I thought, this looks like a pretty cool business. It runs itself. It's like there's one person at the desk. And, so I was married at the time, and I figured, this would be something that my wife at the time could do. So did this build out, opened up a tanning salon. And as a tanner, I knew all the things that people didn't like about tanning. Right there, if the place wasn't kept right, if they didn't have the right supplies, if the bulbs were old, you didn't get a tan. And I knew all the things that I did like. If you go to these higher end salons, it was just, they're beautiful places and everything you could ask for is in there. So I built it nicely the right way. And it just went gangbusters right out of the gate. We were only a block from the beach in New Jersey, but people sometimes don't have time to go to the beach. They want the fast tan. We had 6 or 7 beds, I think it was, and one was like a super tanning bed at the time. But we were doing awesome. And so we sold it before we moved to Florida, but we sold it for a great price compared to what it cost us to open. So we did really well with that business. So here I opened up a brick and mortar place, built it up to it where it was doing excellent, and sold it. So now I did that. So, I didn't learn how to do that except by trial and error. I just knew how to build a business. I feel, let me try that. And then when you go to sell a business, we didn't even have to advertise it. We had one of our members wanted to buy it. It's like she saw the place, loved it, she wanted it. So that's how easy it went down. And we showed her the numbers, and the numbers worked out great. Then I moved to Florida. So that's how that all took place there. So when I started marketing, I felt like I had the right to talk about professional marketing to professionals and about a brick and mortar. So those are my friends that own those type of businesses, whether it was a building somewhere or they did a professional service of some kind. So I ended up working with financial planner, attorneys. I would write for them. So back then I did a lot of writing. And so I would write copy for their professional papers, whether it be a brochure or, you'd give somebody a packet, let's just say, if you were an attorney, if they come in for an interview. So I would write whatever they wanted. Here's the topic, and we would do an interview for a few hours, take a break, do a little bit more. But I would go so deep into their business, like I wanted to know every single thing. And at the core, one of the things I do now, we hit on many topics, but one of the core things that we really need to know is, and I ask this question, like, okay, you're let's just say a real estate attorney. If I'm buying or selling a house or buying or selling a business, whatever, why should I use you out of all my other choices?
The why.
And usually there's dead silence for a little bit, and they'll come up with some type of answers. But the answer is not usually a very, very tightly knit response. So that leads us to one topic. It's called, what we would know in business as a USP. That's short for unique selling proposition. That basically is what distinguishes you from everybody else. That's what that means, and what its intention was back in the 1940s. A gentleman named Rosser Reeves was an ad guy. You see probably that show on TV, Mad Men. He was one of those guys, an advertising agency. Yeah. And he handled this candy company. And they were coming to market. And there was a bunch of good candies back then, Hershey's and so forth. And this candy was different. And he coined the phrase, the USP for this candy, melts in your mouth, not in your hands. And to this day, we know that candy. And he called it a unique selling proposition. So that's how that came about. So to this day, USP is still used, except we put it on steroids now. It's like you can't just say the slogan anymore. You really have to have it. It has to be a little bit more of an elaboration to distinguish yourself from everybody else. And that's really what I go over with folks that have a business, whether they're an entrepreneur or they own a franchise or they're a professional. We really want to find that special thing that sets you apart from everybody else. So sometimes it's harder than others. Okay, but because there's lots of attorneys, there's lots of financial planners, there's lots of dentists, lawyers, accountants. But if you dig deep enough, okay, you'll find something. There's some gold nuggets there. But then even if there's not, there's several other avenues we can go down. We can offer guarantees. We can offer free consultations and trials. There's so many things you can add to develop that USP. But that's one of the things we do early on with a client. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am talking with, not we are, well, we're speaking together, and I'm speaking with the one and only Mike Mastro. He is author, speaker, coach, and marketing expert, as you're starting to learn here. You can find out more about Mike and his offerings at resultsmarketingplus.com. And pay him a visit. You'll be glad you did. One of the books he authored is his latest offering is right here. I sit, and I look at it. The 15 steps you should implement and know. It's called Profit Acceleration. Low-cost solutions to fatten your bank account. This book, Mike, I went through it, and I continue to go through it because it's really what it is basically a deduction and a boiling down of all of the things that you've done. And some of the tips that you offer are just, it's essentially like a virtually zero cost for advertising, but can really show up on the back end of an individual's enterprise. I mean, you've got, super compelling marketing, discount your prices, but don't go broke. Lead generation made easy, leveraging we spoke about briefly. Folks, I would encourage you to check this book out. It's chock full of wisdom. You've got this bug. You've spoken to me about certain things, and I can attest to this. I have, I've got a foot in one camp, a big toe in another, and I dabble here and there. And you're a curious, inquisitive guy, and a good friend at that. You were able to kind of, over the course of probably, I think we were chatting for maybe an hour or so, give me like that unique selling proposition. I just love that. The more, and I'm sure over time, Mike, as you get involved with people and you realize their circumstance and situation, that comes quicker and quicker. You've been around the block, so to say, right? So you're not looking for a needle in a haystack. You can kind of really bring it down in short order for folks. Can you not?
It's all about the questions. So I just know the questions to ask, and that's something that took time. But I'll just sit with somebody, and the first call I'll make with somebody. So if somebody goes onto my calendar, I just want to have a 15-minute call first just to make sure we're going to be a good fit. So then we line up our first real call, which we'll do on a Zoom. And we typically will go a couple of hours. And I let them know that because I have a lot of ground to cover because I want to know everything about their business. And if a coach, in my opinion, or I consider myself a strategist, I try to look at the business as a whole. And we want to put together, I think every business has to have an overall strategy. Like today's businessmen and women and entrepreneurs, they're very, very busy working inside their business. And if you're inside your business, you're probably putting out little fires all day long. And before you know it, the day's over. You haven't done any marketing. And what ends up happening is they feel like I have to now spend a lot of money on advertising in order to get my name out there. And that's one way you can do it. And if you've got the money to do it, that's great and that's fine. Then I approach that because, well, let me see what your advertising looks like. And so I'll fix the headline. I'll fix the sub-headline. Let me look at your website. I'll fix their website, tell what to put, what to change. Because there are definitely some ingredients that go into all of those that are more appropriate than what they might have. But to get back to your point, I ask a lot of questions, and that's what gives me all of the answers. And that's when we come up with an overall strategy. Most people, I want to give business owners what they want today. One of the number one things they want besides increased revenue and net profits, by the way, and I'm not going to talk just about revenue. I mean net profit. It's how much you take home, because there's a big difference between the two. So we address that gap. But they want time. They want time freedom. And sometimes that's why they went into business. They left a 40-hour job, and now they own a 60 or 80-hour business. Okay,
yes.
And they're
created this job.
They're satisfied, but they're not happy because they're not getting the other thing that they want. And so what's lacking? The number. So people will ask, "Hey, well, how do I get time freedom back? I own a business, and yes, I'm busy putting out fires. How do I do that?" And my answer is, you have to have systems in place. Systems or make things accountable. If you don't have systems in place, then it's kind of organized or even disorganized. It's a little bit more chaotic. When you have systems in place, so just for example, let's just say they do run a coupon ad or somewhere, or they're on the online or on a website, and somebody calls in. So I go down that avenue with them, and I go deep. Who answers the phone? Is it one person or is it multiple people? What do they say? Is there a script or is it non-scripted? What happens Or are they trying to sell your service? Or are they trying to make an appointment? What happens when the person comes in for the appointment? And we just go down this road because I need to know all of these processes, because guess what? Every single one of those processes, if you just take and you put them into a system, in other words, the person answering the phone has to know exactly what to say and what questions to ask. Okay? You have to be able to ask questions if you're the person answering the phone. Let me give you an example. I just recently needed our garage door broke, and I had to find a person to repair it. So I called 3 or 4 places. They say hello, and I tell them my problem. Okay, well, just leave your message, and I'll have somebody call you, that kind of thing. This one call, I get on, woman answers. She asked probably a total of 10 to 15 questions, somewhere in there. I didn't say anything except answer her questions. And at the end, she had all my information. She knew exactly what my problem was. And then she closed the deal. She said, what day of the week is best for you and what time is
morning or afternoon.
That's how you handle that. And that's why that garage door business got my business. And that's how it should be run. So that's a process. And so we teach processes, because what happens is if something bad happens or something breaks down, but you have things in systems, we know exactly what broke down and where it was and how to fix it. Otherwise, it's just random chaos. So that's just, I'm not sure if I answered your question. I tend to go off on tangents, Bobby, if you can't tell.
You're a tangent man. You're a tangent guy. No, it takes one to know one. I'm a tangent guy my own self. But, yeah, I find it fascinating because that was one of the things that you went over with me, Mike. You kind of, when you ask somebody, what is their, what's most important, or what are they about? What do you sell? And there's that pause or that hesitation, and it's kind of loose leaf or something. If I don't have a succinct mission, really boiled down to its essentials that's not rolling off the tongue, something of an elevator speech, how are people going to know, how are they going to put their confidence, their faith, their trust, and ultimately their money in my service or profession? So it's very important.
Yes, very true. Very true. So that's one of the things we try to do. It's trying to, we have to get them comfortable with it. So first we find out all the things that they can do, the things they do really well. Maybe they do something that somebody else doesn't do. And we can be talking about chiropractors, dentists. We can talk about a contractor who builds pools or builds decks. It can be a brick and mortar. It could be restaurants. It doesn't matter. Marketing is marketing. And again, what people will usually, they used to ask, well, what gives you the right to tell a restaurateur or a chiropractor or a dentist how to market themselves? Like, you've never done any of those things. I tell them, that's correct, you're right, but I've owned a brick and mortar, I've owned a professional service, and I actually owned a home improvement service, which I didn't mention yet. So back when I was, let me see how long ago this was. This was in the early 2000s. I found a product that was a non-slip product for tile floors, because here where I am in Florida now, and if you walk into a bathroom, there's tile everywhere. And I took a couple little almost falls, and I thought, anyway, I found this product, non-slip. I can make any tile non-slip. I mean, you could literally put water on it. You could not slip if you tried, if you're wearing, a sneaker or with your bare feet. And so I started that company. And so we did people's kitchens, bathrooms, walkways. Some people had marble staircases, that kind of thing. So now I owned also a service business that was not a profession and not a brick and mortar. So now I've covered the gamut. You can speak to people that are what makes you, you don't know anything about the dentistry, for instance, but these principles are tried and true. So you've had your service entity, you've had your bricks and mortar physical location, and so you combat it with that. But I think it's essential too, Mike, to know that those, like you said, those principles, there's a common thread or denominator that runs through every enterprise, whether it's retail, professional, service-oriented industries. That's it's still the same fundamental that you can apply, or folks can apply when seeking out a service such that you offer. That's correct. The principles really never change. I mean, I look at ads from back in the 1940s. That would work today. You just have to change a couple of words around. What changes today, Bobby, is technology. Other than that, the same marketing principles have a compelling offer, how to do a joint venture with another entity so that they're sending you business and maybe you're sending them, how to develop referral systems in your business, how to upsell somebody ethically. Okay, doesn't matter what how to downsell, for that matter, and how to cross sell. So, for folks listening,
can you explain just an example for the folks? What's a downsell?
So let's go to McDonald's. McDonald's was the first one. So you order a burger. You sure you don't want to supersize that? That's the same burger, bigger, right? So they're just trying to upsell you. Okay, I want a small Coke. A large Coke is only 10 cents more. Would you like that? That's an upsell. Okay, so McDonald's was great at it, right? That can be true of any business. Then you can also, I ordered a burger and fries. Well, would you like, remember those hot apple pies back then? You wouldn't be able to eat if you ate it too hot. It would singe your tongue. You couldn't eat anything for a week.
The roof of your mouth, exactly.
But so would you like an apple pie to go with the burger and soda? That's cross-selling. So you can sell people other products. It's very simple. And if you are a very expensive service, we can be talking about anybody, professionals. If the price is a little bit too high, you can downsell them instead of just letting them go. Well, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, instead of this product here, we also have this one here, which it does almost all the same things. It just doesn't have this and this, and it's much less. And now maybe they take you up on that offer instead of letting them go. That's downselling. So all three are appropriate. And I use the word ethically because I don't ever sell somebody something just to make a sale. I want to make sure that they have to be right for my product or service. That's always the way I worked it. And that's the way I kind of insist my clients work it. Like, you can't just be after the money. If all you're after is money, listen, I have no problem with money. It's great. It makes life a whole lot easier because I've had money and I've had no money, and having money is definitely better. But that can't be your intent. Your intent has to be the person that's in front of you. What is it that they want? Okay?
Service.
That's the number one. What result? They have a problem that they don't want, or they have a result that they do, that they want, that they don't have yet. And so that's what I try to get them. It can't be about, how much can I possibly sell this guy? I can't stand that. It turns me off. If I go to, lease car, buy a car, furniture, whatever I do, if I get that person, I just ask for somebody else. And I'll probably say to that person you should probably not hard sell so much. You do much better if you just listen to me and what I want. But anyway, that's the purpose of the 10, 15-minute phone call that I have with any owner first. I just want to make sure we're on the same page as far as that goes, because I only deal from the right morality and the right ethics in business.
And it's funny because you got involved with the marketing. As much as you dislike sales or that high pressure sales scenario, as do I, you found a really mutually rewarding almost like a substitute or surrogate in the field of marketing, because essentially it's still selling, but it's doing it in a way that's with integrity and, like you just shared, ethically. So, it's a good fit for you, man. And so if folks were to reach out and go on to visit you you're on the LinkedIn platform too, by the way, but if they were to go and visit you at resultsmarketingplus.com, there's a place where they can jump on your calendar and schedule a quick 15-minute introductory call. Certainly no obligation or anything like that, but you can essentially just find out their needs, take their temperature. They can share what their problems that they don't want and the results that they want, and then you can schedule something after that. So that's a good way to do it, folks. If you're out there looking for, if you have a business, a small business, an enterprise, even if you've been at the game for any length of time and you're just not getting the results that you feel that you deserve or you expect when you signed up for the venture, if you're brand new, starting out, it might behoove you to make an inquiry to Mike and his services just to see if it's if it's congruent with what your objectives or goals are, long-term, short-term, et cetera. So, yeah, man, I love talking to you. I could talk to you when it's like, I just throw something out there and you're like, oh, well, here's how you handle that. So, you make it very user-friendly and fun to listen to. That's for sure, brother.
Business should be fun.
So you do some private stuff too, like coaching, I understand, correct?
So
one-on-one scenarios.
Yeah, I started strictly one-on-one, and way back when we did it only by phone. Now with the power of Zoom, we can actually see each other. I can put things up on the screen. I send PDFs, but I work with somebody one-on-one. And at this point, I was again venturing to try to figure out how can I help more people. And so I now offer small group coaching. So what that does is I'll take somewhere between anywhere, it got to be a minimum of 3 to 4 people, up to 10. I think 10 is the right number to hold off. And what that does, what that allows me to do is now I not only get to teach each person each topic of marketing. I don't really, when I say teach, they are given, when they sign up for, let's just say, group coaching, our call, let's just say, might be on Friday night or Friday afternoon. Before that, they'll get a 20-minute video that's going to prep them for the topic we're going to discuss. And it's a tutorial. It's going to teach them this topic. And there's some PDFs that they get also that they can print out. And then we go through our call. But now if I've got, let's just say, 5 different businesses on there, might be a chiropractor, might be a pool builder, it could be a guy that builds decks, could be somebody that has a pet store, it doesn't matter what it is, but they're all from different avenues. And the interesting part of how that works is the agreement is we're all going to help you, but if you have a good idea for that person, you need to share it. You have to promise me you'll share it. And that's what we do. So now we're all each other's customer. Like we all have gone probably to a dentist, right? We've all had a contractor come in and do something for our house. Maybe we had a pet, and so we visited pet stores, whatever the service is, hairs, it is. We've all done that. So now we're a customer to that person. We know what we like and what we don't like. We know what would turn us on and turn us off as far as an offer goes. So everybody ends up helping each other. I run it kind of like a mastermind type of situation. So
mastermind, I was going to say that.
Really, really great ideas. And so that at the end of the call, they've got like a lot of golden nuggets to work on for that week. Yeah. So I like to do both. I like both situations are great. The one-on-ones, they get my 100% attention. They also get access to me all week long. If they want to shoot me an email, I will get back to them during the week. That's, one-on-one is costs a little bit more. But
it's more intimate and more intimate. But I like the symbiotic mastermind asset or facet of the group setting too. So one-on-one coaching, group coaching. Outstanding. I'm exhausted listening to you because now I'm not exhausted. You know what it is? It's like I want to go out and do something.
It's funny.
I'm old.
People ask me like, what do I do for fun?
This is
it's
it.
Like,
right?
I used to play basketball and I work out, but honestly, this is like my hobby. I really, if I'm reading something, it's a business. It's like, it's nonfiction, it's business. It might be a biography or somebody, but usually it's a marketing book. It's a book on copywriting. I really enjoy this. And so I get to do it and I enjoy it. And I think that's why I say business should be fun. If a business owner isn't having fun, oh boy, it's just, they need something. And I hope they
say if you enjoy what you do in terms of a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's what you strive to do in terms of, implementing and streamlining systems, procedures. And folks, that's where it's at. So listen, Mike Mastro, I have his book right here, his latest offering. It is called Profit Acceleration. 15 steps. Yes.
I should mention the book isn't for sale. Like I don't have it anywhere. Like I could put it on Amazon, but I don't. If somebody's you have it because you're a special guy, Bobby. I give that to clients because if we have a conversation, if I meet somebody in public and we have a little conversation and they're thinking about being a client, that's who I give it to. I don't sell them. They're for that. And if somebody becomes a client, they get it because when they read it, it's giving them some foundational background as to what we're going to cover over the next several months. And that's the intent of the book.
Well, it's quite a resource because it's value packed. And folks, if you want to get your copy, of course, go online to resultsmarketingplus.com. Set up a 15-minute call. And this isn't a sales call interview. I just wanted you all you to know, my audience, of the unique individual that my friend and acquaintance Mike Mastro what he brings to the table, what he's all about. He's got a unique mindset. We just found out what motivates his mindset. That was going to be my last and final question. And well, he's answered that, right? Because he's doing his hobby. He's living his dream. And Michael, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you today. I'm so glad you carved out the time from your schedule, brother.
My pleasure, Bobby. All the time, anytime. My pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Folks, we've been listening to and chatting with Mike Mastro, and I want to thank you all for your eyeballs and your earballs and your ear holes, rather. And until next time, please take good care. Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Very welcome.